Hello, viewers. Welcome to episode 4 of Make a Living on a Small Farm. And it's your favorite farmer here again, Farmer Alfie. On today's episode, I'm going to practically show you 3 things you need to do on your new farmland. First, before you clear any vegetative cover to make way for crops or structures to be built on. So come along with me and let's get started. Land clearing requires the removal of the vegetative cover, and this includes the trees, the stumps, the roots, the shrubs, the grasses, stones, and any boulders you have on the land surface, thereby creating a workable bed into which you can then plant your seeds or build structures on. And the usual and most common method people employ is first to cut down the trees, get a backhoe or an excavator to clear and flatten the land so that they can start their farm enterprise. But before you do any of this, I want to show you today 3 things you need to do first. The first thing you need to do before any other thing is to investigate the topography of your land. So what do? You look over your property, make an inventory, identify and evaluate what you have on your farmland, and now decide what you want to keep and what to get rid of. In order to do this, you need to test your soil to see if it is suitable for the crop you intend to grow. Common things to check out for include its fertility, its moisture, its texture, acidity and pH level, and some microbial activities in the soil. Regarding how to check fertility, I'll leave that for today. I'll make a complete video on that in some subsequent episode of mine to come. But for the moisture, acidity, and pH levels, you can use a simple device like a soil hygrometer to check. You can also use the basic touch and feel method to check for the moisture. But for a more accurate result, I will advise you use the soil hygrometer. So this is how a soil hygrometer looks like. This device you see here can check for soil moisture, acidity and pH level, and even check for the amount of sunlight that is being absorbed by the soil or even a plant. But before I even demonstrate how this device works, I would want to take this moment and acknowledge Kojovi Asavo and Daniel Nutako. These two gentlemen personally reached out to me on call and on Facebook to let me know how I've inspired them to also get farmland to start a farming project. And this is a clear sign that I'm beginning to make an impact out there. So I would urge more youth to join this cause so that we can change our community and motherland by one small farm at a time. This is the hygrometer, and I want to demonstrate to you how it works. So first, let's identify some of the indicators on it. When you look at the interface, it has 3 markings. The line below shows the alkaline and acidity mark. The one in the middle shows the moisture content mark, and the one above, the white line, that is to show the light mark. So with this, anytime you pick a reading, you look out for these markings on the screen. This button here is for you to select whether you want to check for moisture, light, or pH level. For the alkaline and acidity level, we have a reading from 6 to 3.5. What we are looking out for here is to check whether our soil, the alkaline and acidity base is normal. Assuming you make your test and your reading shows 8, it means that it is too alkaline. And when it is between 6 to 3.5, it tells you that your acidity level is high. So you always want to make sure that your level for the alkaline and acidity test is on 7, which means it's neutral. When you look at the next line up, that is to measure the moisture, and it ranges between 1 to 10. If you happen to take your reading and it measures between 1 to 3%, what it means is that the moisture content is dry. When it reaches from 4 to 7%, it tells you that it is normal. The moisture content of the soil is normal. And any reading from 8 to 10 means that there's wetness in the soil. And the last mark above indicates the sunlight that is being absorbed in the soil. So this basically is the parameters of the soil hygrometer. So now let's do a test. To test the hygrometer, you simply place the pointed tips into the soil and allow it for some 10 minutes, then you pick your reading. So whilst we allow the soil hygrometer to pick its reading in the next 10 minutes, let's go on and see how you can test for the texture. But to remind you, all these tests should be carried out at the lab. That will give you a more accurate measure. But if you find yourself on the farm like myself and you don't have access to any laboratory around, or you want to simply do an easy test to check for these things, these are the manual ways you go about them. To test for the soil texture, you can use the basic manual method by hand, as I mentioned earlier. And to do this, fetch a handful of soil and add small water and knead for like 2 minutes into a bowl. You keep adding water or soil until the ball of soil no longer sticks to your palm and fingers. Then press out between your thumbs and fingernails. If it feels gritty and soil grains stick to your fingers, then you are probably dealing with a sandy soil. If it feels silky and discolors fingers with organic stain, then it's probably loamy soil. But if it feels smooth, plastic, or sticky and has firm resistance to shearing when dropped, then it means you are working with clay soil. So as I'm kneading it, I can feel it a bit gritty. And as you can see, the soil grains stick to my palm after 2 minutes. So this tells me that this side of my farmland has a lot of sandy soil. Okay, so it's been almost 12 minutes. So we want to check the reading on our hygrometer. So as you can see, the mark at the bottom, which checks the alkaline and acid level, says almost 4. Now from this reading, it tells me that this section of my soil is acidic. Then the next line mark above it will measure the moisture, and when I pick the moisture reading, you see that it has shifted from the red section to the blue. That tells me that this section of my land has wetness. And the last bar above, which is the light one, is almost on the 1,000 mark, which tells me the amount of sunlight that is being absorbed by the soil. That is almost like 1,000 lumen. Let me mention here that soil texture or moisture varies from place to place. So it will be wise for you to carry out this same exercise at different spots of your farmland so that you are able to identify which area has a suitable moisture and texture for the crop you intend to plant. Okay, good. So now let's talk about microbial activities. And microbial activities has to do with the presence or absence of some beneficial microorganisms and their products in the soil. These organisms in the soil promote biomass decomposition and biogenetic element circulation, which makes nutrients available to the plants and also help maintain the soil structure and the food web in the soil. And common among these that you can see with the eye will be worms, mites, ants, millipedes, weevils, and some termites. So the rest will be with the use of a microscope since it is not visible to the eye. So to test for microbial activities in the soil, what you have to do is to dig beneath the topsoil and check for any microorganism activities at that section of the soil. So that is what I'm just doing now to check whether there are some microbial activities beneath this side of the topsoil. From my observation, as you can see, this tells me there's not much microbial activities happening around this section of the soil. So you might also want to carry out this on different sections of your farmland to check where they have high microbial activities so that you can plant your crops there because you know their activities promote faster plant growth. So I believe by now you are learning a lot. And if you are encouraged by this video, I would want you to do 3 simple things for me. The first I would urge you to do is to subscribe to this channel so that you can get more content on farming as you are seeing now. And the second one is for you to watch this video to its entire end. And lastly, I would want you to like and share this video as well. Thank you. The second thing you should do after investigating your soil is to investigate the vegetative cover of your land as well, being it the trees, the plants, the grasses, everything that is growing on the surface of the land. Now, one will ask why. There are 2 reasons why you should do this.
First of all, you would want to check and see if you can identify some plant or tree species which are in extinct. By so doing, you may want to preserve them or reposition them on the farmland. The second is to identify any plant or grass species that can serve as foliage for your farm enterprise, assuming you want to go into livestock farming. And just talking about that, right beside me, even on my farmland, I can spot a lot of plant species that I can use to feed my livestock. A typical example is this very plant here. This is usually fed to the goat. It's a common grass that people harvest around for goat. And as you can see also from here, I have this fish, these plants which are also fed to rabbits. So even from the word go, by just doing this investigation, I've been able to hit a jackpot finding feeds for my livestock, and it's good news for me. So I would want to preserve this area and keep growing more of this and harvest it for my farm stock. This will also reduce the feeding cost of my farming enterprise. All right. So still on vegetation, if you happen to have a lot of trees on your farmland, what you do is to identify them and determine what other purpose you can use them for. Some trees reduce the amount of rainwater runways within your farm, and by so doing, this prevents erosion, and this may also reduce the effect of flooding on your farmland. Others provide protection from the wind, the rain, and the sun, and also not forgetting the beautiful scenery it adds to the landscape. However, other trees also prevent sunlight and rain from getting to the soil by shielding. So for such trees, you'd want to cut them down and put them into more beneficial use like firewood, charcoal, or even use them as posts on your farmland. Another way to make use of harvested trees on your farmland will be by way of trade-off. In my case, for instance, the trees that I harvested, I made charcoal out of them, and I was able to get close to 3 bags of charcoal. And the cost of clearing an acre of my farmland by hand was 300 Ghana cedi. That is close to $25. And the cost of a bag of charcoal then was selling at 80 Ghana cedi, which is 70 USD. So what I did was simply to trade off the 3 bags of charcoal to cater for the cost of clearing 1 acre of my farmland, and I made some savings. So this is another way to you can look at it. Not only the clearing, but any other activity that involves you giving out money. Look at what you have and see what you can trade off for that to save you cost. And again, viewers, if you can see this, this is a dominant grass I'm struggling with to clear from my farmland. It's been growing rapidly everywhere and there, even as much as I try to get rid of it. But guess what? Out of this, I have hit a jackpot. Little did I know that this is a grass that is being used for thatch roof, for those summer hats, pergolas, and all that. This is the grass they use. I had no idea, and I was surprised when I got to find out. So instead of trying to get rid of them, now I am trying to gather it. What I intend to do is incorporate this into some of the structures I'll be putting up on the farmland as they are roofing. Or again, another way is to keep gathering them periodically and sell off to these artisans who are into that trading. In that way, whatever proceeds I get from the selling, I'll use it for the running cost of the farm. That will also earn me some savings. So one thing that should be of notice to you is how I am giving you tips on how to save on a farm enterprise like this, especially when you're on a low budget like myself. So viewers, the third and final thing you should do after your soil and native cover investigation is to make a plan. The whole objective of the investigation we carried out was to have a fair idea and know exactly what is happening at each spot of our land. So, with all this information you've gathered, you will now be able to draw out a good layout plan of your farmland, knowing especially where to place what item. So, if I use my case as an example,
After my investigation, I noticed that the whole side of the land is sloping towards that far end. And what it means is that rainwater runoff gather mostly at that side. So at that side, what I can do there on the plan is to plant more trees there to try and prevent any further erosion or flooding around that side. Another good thing I can do there is that I can decide to set up my fish farm there because I know that side of the soil will hold more water. And if it's a lot of water being channeled there, I can take advantage of that and invest something to create a nice fish pond over there. If I look also right here, this also tells me that rainwater runs off through this side to the far end I was talking about. So when I'm planning my farmland or I'm drawing my layout, I would want to take note of this side and put a drainage here because this is already the natural canal that the rainwater is in. So just to aid it not to disturb the flow of the rainwater, I'll just make a drainage here that continues all the way to where the lower side of the land section. Now, if you look at that section, that shows after my investigation that I have good soil and highlands there. So for those areas, I would want to put up my structures there because the idea of doing that is when the highland, when the place is flooded or there's rain, you don't want your structures getting flooded or the animals being flooded whilst in their pens or cages. So it is high enough for me to put up my structures there. So this is the objective of carrying out the investigation to know every every spot of the land and what to place there and make good use of it. Good for me. You can see this road map. This tells me it's an access road. I don't know the plan for the government or the authority. I don't know the plan for the authorities or government in future. So I have also moved like 8 meters away from that boundary. Should in case in future there's a access road here, what happens? It means I've got easy access to my farmland. And this is also an advantage for me, early to market and accessibility to the farmland. Good viewers. So this is where I'll bring today's episode to an end. And I believe you have learned a lot on this episode. If you are encouraged by this, I would want you to please subscribe to this channel to get more detailed and educative content on farming like this. Share and like this video. Thank you.